today, and my job is just to introduce it. So my name is Seema Iyer, and I oversee the project at the University of Baltimore called the Baltimore Neighborhood Indicators Alliance. And we are a data intermediary for the City of Baltimore. And just to let you know what we're here to, the agenda today is going to be talking about open data and thinking about our audience among you and among us that are potentially thinking about hosting an open data portal and the different platforms that are out there. So this is our second in a series of 3 webinars, thinking about different platforms, the pros and cons, people that have used them, and how we can make sure that your stipulations and your specifications for starting an open data portal are answered through webinars like this. So my name again is Seema Iyer. We have speakers that are amazing speakers, Rufus Pollock, Bob Gradeck, and Christine Hagyard, and the team at Ontario Digital Service, including Bianca Sayan and Hao Quinn. All of their bios are going to be putting in the chat. All of their bios are online, and we will put them in the chat so you can see who they are. And then the final moderation will be with our partner in this work by Mike McGuire, who's professor at Towson University. And we have a grant from the South Big Data Hub. Some of you are probably here from the network and the South Big Data Hub to help all of us understand the pros and cons of different data portals for platforms. So a little bit about ourselves. We are part of the National Neighborhood Indicators Partnership, and one of our partners from Pittsburgh, Bob, Bob Gradeck is here from Pittsburgh, part of this learning network that is housed at the Urban Institute. And it's been going on for more than 20 years. We were the 6th member back in 1999-2000 when we joined, and it's a learning network to try and push out data in the hands of communities. Our signature product at the Baltimore Neighborhood Indicators Alliance, if you come to our website, is what's called the Vital Signs Report. We put out over 100 different indicators for communities in all of our neighborhoods to better understand how things are changing in a broad range of topics. We're a comprehensive site. We look at everything from demographics to health to education. And you're welcome to join us on our website anytime to learn more about Baltimore, for those of you that don't live in Baltimore. And we can see that we actually have a lot of folks that do not live in Baltimore based on the poll. So welcome to all of you that might not be familiar with our city already. So let me tell you a little bit about why we're doing this. We are we have a project with many of the area institutions, so the University of Baltimore being one of them, Towson being another, Bowie State, and the University of Maryland in Baltimore County. We have a National Science Foundation grant to create the Baltimore Data Science Core. And the idea being that if we create a more standardized curriculum around data science in service to cities like Baltimore, we can really help create the next generation of data scientists that not only understand the technology and the technical aspects of data science, but actually how to apply their skills to make a city like Baltimore continuously better over time. There's more information about the overall data science project for those that want to take a look. It's called datasciencecore.umbc.edu. And because we have students from all of these universities both analyzing and creating data, we wanted to create a way for hosting the data that they're looking at for other students in the Baltimore metropolitan area to take a look at some of the use cases that they looked at and maybe some other projects and other topics that they can look at using the data that's already been created through this process. So we have our own particular interest. We're interested in hosting an open data portal that crosses over all of our institutions and is truly a regional asset. And so we have some things that we're thinking about that we have needs for, but we wanted to open it up to all of you thinking about your needs for hosting an open data portal. And these are the questions that we got back in the fall. If some of you remember, you might have answered some of the questions about what you're interested in learning for hosting an open data portal. And these are the questions, and we're gonna actually put these questions in the chat because we've asked our panelists to try and address these questions in some of their opening remarks. So the way it's gonna work is each one of them is going to give a little bit of a presentation for 15 minutes, and then we will answer questions at the end. So we have about 15-20 minutes at the end for Q&A. And that's my little quick lead up. And I'm going to turn it over to Rufus Pollock, who's here from Datopian. And thanks again to all of our awesome panelists for being here.
Thank you, and welcome everyone. Yeah, I'm gonna just let me just give me a second. Let me paste that in. There. Let me share my screen. I think it's the best setup, and I can not stop video. There we go, and we can go from there. Can you see okay?
Yep, you're good.
Great. So maybe to start with, I can introduce myself and Datopian. So my name is Rufus Pollock. I've been involved in open data for, well, since it began. I helped define what open data was. I started, I guess, now more than 15 years ago in this space. I founded something called the Open Knowledge Foundation. And Datopian came out of Open Knowledge Foundation, and I wrote the very first version of CKAN and kind of contributed a lot to the code originally, now many years ago, like 2005, 6, 7, and 10. And Datopian sort of came out of that. So we're the original creators of CKAN. We were kind of originally a part of Open Knowledge Foundation, and then we spun out as an independent entity providing the services around CKAN. And we built at Datopian the world's first kind of portals for publishing open data, and we're an international team that we have together with amongst us kind of combined decades of expertise in CKAN, but also just in data management, data publication, open data in general. And we work with organizations of all sizes to allow them to unlock their data's potential, whether that's publishing openly or managing it internally. And we actively, one of the two kind of co-stewards of CKAN, we continue to contribute and develop CKAN a lot, along with others in the community. So maybe to start, like, what is CKAN? So it's I'd say the leading open source data portal platform. In fact, I'd say maybe the leading data portal platform generally. I think it's probably by the number of deployments now globally, probably #1 in terms of like software that's used. And it's, I would say now call it data management software. So, and it's usable both out of the box. You can just take CKAN, you can install it and run it. And as a kind of framework that you can customize and build on. And CKAN makes it basically, and simply put, really easy to publish, share, and work with data. It provides a powerful platform. You can catalog, store, and access data sets with a rich front end, full API, visualization tools, and more. And I'll show maybe a bit more of that in a moment. But also CKAN, I mean, CKAN's been around now for actually about 13. I mean, it was first released, I think, was in 2007. And it was originally just built actually to power a specific website. But since 2009, 2010, so over a decade, it's been used for the UK national government portal, data.gov.uk, data.gov, Switzerland, Australia, Canada, the Humanitarian Data Exchange, just like dozens of government portals, the largest in the world, but also in enterprise, also for many nonprofits. It's been used in different nonprofit organizations. And it's also been used for really small portals, by the way. It's been used for some of the biggest in the world, but you can also stand it up and like publish 10 data sets in it. It's very flexible. And I want to also emphasize that kind of CKAN started out as being used for open data portals for government. And that's still like very, very widely used in that way. At the same time, at least over the last decade in general, but especially the last 5 years, CKAN is a very powerful like data catalog, even data lake solution or data portal solution inside enterprise. So CKAN has been adopted by Fortune 500 companies, Fortune 50 companies in energy, pharmaceuticals, and finance to publish and manage internal data assets, as well as open data publication in all over the world. So one thing I want to kind of mention just to emphasize that is that CKAN you could think, I call it this data management system, which isn't a common term maybe yet, but just like you think of content management systems like a CMS, like WordPress, you kind of, the easiest way to think of CKAN often, or any of these tools, is like a WordPress for data in the simplest sense. And like those, like a CMS, a DMS can be used to create a variety of solutions. I mean, you can use WordPress, if you think of it, to power your local blog, or it can power a massive website, or it can even power something like an internal knowledge management system in your company. You can take a CMS and customize, and that's also true with a data management system like CKAN. It is usable just straight out of the box. You just turn it on, but it's also, even in doing that, you can use it in a variety of ways. You can use it like for a data portal, an open data portal, or you can use it as a data catalog. You're just kind of inventorying your data, you're standardizing the metadata. And then you can use it for like a data lake, or even kind of ETL, like inside managing data flows inside your government organization or within the enterprise. So you can kind of use it to build different kinds of solutions for yourself. And that's kind of important to sort of emphasize that I sometimes think of CKAN more sometimes as a framework that you can then use to build, just as WordPress started out for blogging, but you can now use it to build all kinds of different websites. That's true of CKAN. And it's a lot of features, 100% open source, and it's highly mature. I mean, if you're using CKAN, it's something now that's been around for over a decade. It's got a large installed base. It's going to be maintained. It's going to be upgraded. And as I said, out of the box, you get user management, data set management, search and discovery over metadata and metadata customization. You can store data, so it's not just for metadata. You can for years, it has a full data API, so you can have structured data storage with an API. We have users out there who are basically using CKAN for smart city IoT solutions. They are like feeding real-time type data into CKAN, for example, energy price data or city information data into CKAN over the data API. So you're not uploading a CSV every minute, you're uploading new records every minute, or sometimes every second or every hour. And it also has a rich, has a visualization. And the other thing, as open source, there are like literally now hundreds of extensions that cover all, whether it's integrating single sign-on, SAML or OAuth or something else, or it's particular visualization, or you want, Microsoft's data API, which is OData, there's an extension that will just put that on top of CKAN's data API. CKAN also itself has a very, very rich and very mature API. It was kind of built almost API first from the beginning. So everything you can do in the UI, you can do over the API and more. So integrating CKAN with other things, either in a variety of ways is generally always possible and often easy, as I would say, So you can also federate CKAN. You can pull data between portals. You've got this data store and data API. It's themable. Extremely easy to theme. There are hundreds. I'm going to show you different sites in a moment. There's a visualization, Rich kind of call it Tableau Light. But there's a bunch of visualization just out of the box. You can also build custom dashboards. We regularly do that with clients. You can manage data. Obviously, there's a rich. You can support from multiple publishers. I know that was a question. Multiple organizations, multiple publishers, multiple themes. And there's also versioning. One of the things we've been working on a lot over the last 2 to 3 years is there's always been metadata versioning in CKAN, but full data versioning. So you can go back to old versions of data and things like that. And finally, particularly important, maybe in government, but also the enterprise, is very rich permissioning system. You can customize access to data sets at multiple levels. You can have groups access like teams or organization access. You can have individual access. You can have like shareable links. You can customize permissions. You can plug into the permission system and implement, whatever you want really. And I also this is like a little bit in development, but I was kind of like, CKAN also, one of the things I think that can be very attractive about it is it's sort of got a kind of increasingly componentized approach, where you can kind of take the bits you want, you can integrate with other things. So for example, increasingly people are building what I'd call like data factories. They're automating the data, cleaning of data, and then putting it into, let's say, CKAN. Now CKAN has that feature, like data factory feature for kind of ETL. extract, transform, load. But, you know, maybe you want to use your own system, or you want to use Azure Databricks, or you want to use your own, you want to use Pandas, or you want to use Prefect.io, or whatever. You can kind of integrate that with CKAN. So you can kind of pull out, you can use, you know, this is a crude overview of some of the subcomponents, but you can kind of pull out what you want and replace other, you know, other bits. So you can kind of, you can use CKAN, and it kind of plays very nicely with other existing tools and systems you have. Then one thing I want to talk about, you know, I want to bring up about open source is sometimes people hear open source and like, yeah, that's, yay, that's amazing. That means, you know, flexibility, agility, you know, control over the cost of ownership. But it can also mean like, am I stuck, you know, building this myself from scratch, you know, and I need a developer to do it for me. And so, like, just first of all, absolutely, I mean, CKAN is mature open source. It's highly documented, many people and organizations have deployed it themselves. So you can deploy and manage it yourself, you know, certainly if you know what you're doing technically in minutes or hours, there's no problem. You know, like there's a Docker setup, you know, off you go, you know, there's instructions for deploying on cloud providers. And there are several SaaS providers. We, Datopian, I think, are probably the largest. We host SaaS for like tens of instances, hundreds of instances of CKAN for clients all over the world. So there is a SaaS. You can just come and sign up out of the box. It's ready to go. You know, all you need is the credit card. You developer not required, kind of thing. That does exist. And finally, the other thing that we do and others do, which is also kind of very attractive, is you want to deploy on your infrastructure. You want to deploy on your cloud or your thing, but you want someone to do it for you and manage it for you. And again, we do that at Datopian, and others do that, where you can just come along and say, okay, here's my cloud or here's my infrastructure. I want you to deploy and manage it, but I want it on my infrastructure. And that's something also that's totally available. And, you know, is that we do with many people on all of the public clouds. Just a very quick then at the end, if there are, I mean, I think I've covered, I hope, some of the questions. We can come back to them. But, you know, CKAN has powered data.gov, the largest, I think one of the largest open data portals in the world since 2012, 2013. We're actually at Datopian have been working with them with Civic Actions, our US partner, over the last few years, which has been great. With them. So there's that. This is an example of like actually where there's a lot of real-time, almost real-time data and a lot of visualization, which is the basically Danish electricity network, the people who run all of the electricity network in Denmark. They publish a load of data publicly, and they're running on CKAN, and we've collaborated with them a lot. The Department of Ed in the United States, you know, and again, just to give you a sense, these are all CKAN instances, but as you can see, they look really different. It's very theming is a very common thing, and it's very easy. And that theming also extends to things like metadata. You know, you can change the metadata you collect, you can customize that, and so on. It's very flexible. You can customize workflows, permissioning setups. You know, who gets to approve data before it goes live, and stuff like that. Oh, I don't know what I just did there. So I think I'm going to visit the setup there. This is Montreal. So this is a bilingual portal, also running on CKAN with very kind of customized front end. So, you know, multi-language support is kind of out of the box. And also a site which I like, there's quite a lot of UX design. You can check out some of these sites, are quite different ways of doing the user experience around CKAN. And obviously when we get to, I didn't put Ontario on here because they're about to speak, but I'm just giving another Canadian site, and obviously the government of Canada, which I also haven't put up here, but which is amazing. I think it's one of the really oldest and very full-featured portals. And this is like another organization. I think it's one of the, I always give a shout out. I think it's we've worked with them over the years on and off, but I just think it's one of the most, they're a really amazing project, the Humanitarian Data Exchange. I think it's also one of the most, one of the most awesome portals, because they've just done a lot with CKAN. They've got a lot of functionality. They put a lot of time and energy into the user experience. So it's a really, really, I think, kind of rich portal experience, which is also quite simple. And Sarah Telford over at the UN OCHA, who built this, and it's been running, I think her and the team there have done a fabulous job. And also giving you a sense like the kind of non-profit more, or the IGO sector. And they're also, you know, I keep clicking, taking you off to visit that. So that's it really from me. And I could talk to many, many more sites or examples I could give. And I hope we're about to hear from a couple. But yeah, thank you for the opportunity to talk, and happy to answer questions later.
Thank you so much, Rufus. I learned so much just from that. So thank you very much. I didn't know what a DMS was before, so that's great for me. And yeah, we're going to turn it over to two applications that have an instances of CKAN. And we're going to start in Pittsburgh, and then we're going to move to Ontario. We're going to start with Bob Gradeck from Pittsburgh.
Hey, how you doing? So you can see my slides now. I'm going to just do the share thing.
Yep. And remember, if Bob's bio's in the chat, and if you do have any questions, please put them in the chat for now, and then we'll have a conversation at the end.
Sounds good. So I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about what our experience has been with CKAN. And we've been at it since about 2015. And I'm going to just look at my clock here and make sure that I'm on time. And so I'm at the University of Pittsburgh. I'm staff there, and I manage a team of 3 other people. The Western Pennsylvania Regional Data Center is the project. We are actually a partnership between our university, the City of Pittsburgh, and Allegheny County. And we maintain an inclusive federated open data infrastructure. I'll talk more about the tool building we do. The technical assistance is also something else that we do that I'm probably not going to cover a whole lot of today, along with just training and data literacy. So I'm going to really focus on the CKAN aspects of our work. And so back in beginning of 2015, we kind of hashed out this project as a way to set up an open data portal that can be shared, as opposed to having the city pay a vendor for their own site and the county pay a vendor. But why not just like work with a shared site that can be extended to other organizations? So we pulled a group of people together from local universities, Pitt, Carnegie Mellon, people from our government partners, and even community users, just to kind of think more about how we're going to approach this whole process. We put together an RFQ to learn more about the different technologies. We looked at open source and also a lot of proprietary systems, and developed some selection criteria. And so those were impact on sustainability. We have functions and features, performance and reliability of the system, the usability of it, the vendor experience and capacity if we want that route, and then any other criteria. So this is kind of how we structured our process. And we have a blog post written, and I'll throw that into the slide notes as well, so that you have a copy of that. And that covers all of our things with links to RFQs and everything else. So it's a bit of a roadmap. But we use CKAN as a repository for many different publishers. I think we have over 20 publishers now. By far the biggest are the city and the county, but we also have cycling advocacy groups and the United Way, which is our newest one. So there's a whole lot of different levels of organizations. But really the tech side of this is the easy side. Managing the open data portal is not the hard part. The hard part in managing this is building trust with each of these organizations, managing the relationships. People come in and out of these organizations all the time. It's a lot. And then also working with organizations that have, in many cases, really limited data capacity. I think in all but a few of these, there's not a data person that we work with. It's a person who happens to just have access to data, but that's not their primary job. So working with them, building their capacity is also a big part of it. So if you're considering this, it also really helps to have a boilerplate data sharing agreement too. We set that up from the start with our attorneys. So if any organization, we get them interested in this, we can hand them a 2-page agreement. They can have their executive director or board chair sign it, and we're off and running. And so with CKAN, we were able to take some existing data standards that were in the platform and customize that. And so we took a look at a lot of other communities. San Francisco, I think, led the way with a lot of documentation, and we kind of adopted what they did and added a few different features. So this was a really nice thing. Back in 2015, a lot of the other products that we looked at didn't even feature metadata on the dataset pages, which was a really thing that we were really interested in doing. And so with CKAN, you can actually create your own fields, you can create your own standards, you can have it conform to DCAT and other existing metadata standards, which is really important if you're going to connect it to things like data.gov or have it optimized in search engines. And so one of the things that we did is we did a lot of customizations with some partners. I'll talk about at the end, but we created kind of integrated data dictionaries with our instance of CKAN. So it wasn't just a CSV, but now we can, do a lot around just recognizing data types and things like that, and being able to provide descriptions within the platform itself. We use existing plugins from CKAN, like there was a data table upgrade that made our site much more user-friendly and usable. Being able to create extracts from a data table is a really nice feature. We were able to work with vendors of ours on CKAN. We had some help getting started to create embedded views. So putting a website or putting a map on the pages was something that a lot of people wanted to see. And we were able to do that with the flexibility of open source and having a team that can kind of work with the teams that we work with on this. We even did a lot of work ourselves to create a whole performance dashboard so that we can measure how many times data sets get accessed in our total stats, which is what a lot of our publishing partners want to see. Just how many data sets are how many times has a certain data set been accessed since we published it, and what are the data sets that are most popular. So we're able to do that as well, although like there's a little glitch with the Google API that we have to work through, but that's just the life of dealing with open source stuff sometimes. We were able to pull in plugins for embedded comments because feedback's really important when it comes to public open data. Being able to get comments from people, questions from people, and answer that on the portal was also something nice that we were able to do through a plugin. And then just a few of the other plugins and customizations that are important to us. Being able to set up alerts when a data feed goes bad for us, something breaks, we know about that. We have those things running through Slack. So our team built some of those customizations. We use the ArcGIS Harvester for our city and county open data portals. So as they publish to their ArcGIS portal, we can actually harvest the links and make it so that it's more discoverable for people. And then one of the things that we worked on as well is making our data spatially aware, so that when we're developing tools to actually make use of that data, and it's like, hey, which of these points or which of these coordinates are within this boundary, like a census tract, having that all work from the portal has been nice too. But the advice I would give you is just automate everything. This is a picture that one of our team just sent us this morning, or sent me this morning from a Wikipedia page. But I really like I'm trying to move these here, but the caption at the bottom, minimal human intervention for making everything work is really, if you're going to have a lot of data sets and a lot of publishers, that's really essential. So writing scripts to do the ETL or extract, transform, load process is really important so that things run. If somebody goes on vacation, somebody switches jobs, you'll still wind up with those daily data updates. So what you want to do is be this person in the chair and like let everything run around you, because it's been all automated as much as you can make it do it. And so CKAN enables you to do that. One of the examples that I would give you is like a lot of our automation happens when somebody will publish or post a data set to an FTP site, or we'll have access to somebody's API and be able to pull a data set in. But like the most extreme example we had was working with our local parking authority, who have 2 different parking payment systems, and they wanted to be able to share data with the city about, which parking zones were receiving, the most revenue and things like that. So they have 2 vendors. One runs the kiosks at the curb. One runs the mobile pay system. We had to actually go out and pay for parking and look at how the data shows up in their data feed. No documentation, anything like that. But those are sometimes the things that if you have the right team and you have the right infrastructure, you can actually set up those things. So it was a real learning experience for us. And so now we have a parking data dashboard, so we can monitor things like how much is the city making and what's the impact of COVID on neighborhood business districts and things like that. We also build a lot of user-facing tools. So on our tools menu of our website, we have a lot of those posted, so you can see how that works. But pulling data from the data portal through the API into these tools is also something that is really valuable for our work. And even doing things like this, where spatially aware data comes into play. This is our new community statistics tool, like what they have in Baltimore, but it's pulling data directly from the open data portal. So as data sets change, we can create year-to-date indicators. You could see the totals of what happened 5 minutes ago in some of our data sets. So connecting it to an API and having that data be spatially aware enables us to do more of this stuff. But when it comes to all of this work around maintenance and automating things, I think budget for it is the advice that I would give you. Looking at what we do, you know, staff time to manage the CKAN instance. Sometimes things do go down or a server gets turned off accidentally. We use AWS, but some of the other things that we rely on, things do break from time to time. So budget that in. Data hosting is going to be a cost for you depending on the amount of data. It could get bigger and bigger by the month, which is the case with us. Any other kind of contracts that you have, if you have a vendor in mind that you're working with to support you on this kind of work, budget that in. I think like roughly 20% of what I look at for projects, like if we're building a tool for somebody, I'll just add 20% on to cover a lot of our maintenance costs. So incorporate that from the start. But just some thoughts and advice. You know, we think about CKAN as an infrastructure for our projects and our products. Sorry, there's an airplane here. It'll go away in a minute. You know, so build it into your infrastructure, build it into your stack. It's a really nice way to host data, and then using the API, you can make use of it in a lot of different ways. But in terms of our business model and the whole search process, that was really invaluable just to check everything out. Make sure that the product fits your business model. Don't design your business model around your product. You know, us looking at having multiple organizations use the same infrastructure. Some vendors wanted to charge us per organization, no matter how many data sets they were ready to host. And that just didn't work for us. So it might have been a great product, but it just didn't fit our business model. So have an idea of your business model before you make your selection here. Consider finding consultants to help you get off the ground. I know Rufus's team does this. We worked with consultants out of New York, Jolden Tividad and Sammy Begg, who've been in the CKAN space a long time here in the US, and they were really invaluable in helping us set up our instance, help us with tech upgrades, and help us with a lot of the plugins. And we've kind of taken over a lot of the management of that now that we've got much more experience over the last few years. And then just like, we're really flexible, or happy with the flexibility that this all provides in open source. It's really helped us be more sustainable. We've been able to manage our costs, but it's also given us the ability to kind of do things that we wanted to do with the technology too, and not just be stuck with, you know, a vendor's, you know, an idea of what the vendor wanted to build for their products. So happy to take questions, and it's been nice to be here and be part of this conversation today. And at the end here, I just have some links for you as well. So check those out. And I think, Seema, I can give you a link to the slides or put those in the chat.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Bob. We call Bob and the team in Pittsburgh kind of like our project from another mother out there in Pittsburgh, because we look to them for all kinds of things that we can bring back to Baltimore. So thanks so much, Bob. It's great to have you here. And now we're going to Ontario. Chris, Bianca, and Hao, you want to take it over from here?
Yeah, so I'll just start. I think Hal's going to share his screen, and while he is, I'll just say hi. We're also thrilled to be here. My name's Christine Hager, and I'm here with Hao and Bianca from Ontario, and we're just going to walk you through our CKAN implementation. And thanks. I'm going to start with just a background context setting of Ontario. There we go. Yep. So we're from the Ontario government. That's a provincial government here in Canada. It's the equivalent of a state government in the US. There's approximately 15 million people in our province. We're from Ontario Digital Service. That's the entity within our government that's responsible for the government's enterprise-wide open data program. We have a law in Ontario, the Simpler, Faster, Better Services Act, that we passed in 2019. And that law outlines the responsibilities of our government ministries to share open government data. We launched our first data catalog in 2012. At the time, it was essentially a website with 63 data assets. And then we relaunched in 2019 on CKAN, and we have about 2,700 data assets on there right now, 800 of which are open data. I should note the SFBSA requires us to release a government-wide data asset inventory there. And one other note, we do have 2 public data catalogs in Ontario. The one that houses our geospatial open data is based on the Esri platform. And so then next slide, I'm just going to tell you a bit more about our CKAN catalog. Again, just some stats, as Bob was mentioning, everybody always loves and asks the stats. So just in the last year, our catalogs had just over 4 million views to the catalog and well over 500,000 data access, previews, and downloads. That excludes our API. We do use this CKAN API, and we know a lot of the data journalists and community activists who make dashboards using our data. They use the API. We don't yet have a way to count those, so those numbers are a bit conservative. Data from the data catalog also directly powers visualizations and dashboards on other Ontario.ca government sites. And just as an example, just one site alone, our COVID Data Viz site, has had just under 7 million views in the same time period. That's in addition to the views you see up top, which is people coming direct to the catalog for the data. And lastly, we are expanding both our open data program and our data catalog to show more than just the data assets that the government has, but also what we're doing with those data assets. And we're starting with whether or not we're using that data within algorithms or automated decision making. So we've used the group function with CKAN to create a new group dedicated to algorithms and AI to tell the public what that is and about. The links are all there. And we've added algorithms as a new data asset class on the catalog. So just another way that we're expanding our program. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Bianca and Hao to walk you through a bit more on the catalog itself.
Hi, everybody. So I think for some people in the audience, they're going to be interested in, yes, but how did you get the website working? So CKAN has really good instructions for getting you started. We followed them almost to the letter. Don't be afraid if it takes a couple tries and you have to start over again. It's fine. You'll definitely get there. So what we're using right now for both our internal and external CKAN data catalog is CKAN 2.8 with Python 2.7. We did make some modifications to the installation for 2.8, and that kind of creates a little bit of extra debugging, but not much. And if you want to follow it to the letter, you should do pretty well. And then we've layered several CKAN plugins on top of that. Because of the services that we have access to within the government, we have access to Azure, so we're using virtual machines plus a PostgreSQL service. The instructions in the catalog are actually installing and using PostgreSQL on the same machine. Doesn't really matter. It seems to work fine whichever way. It shouldn't divert you too much or complicate things too much for you. So the way we've implemented all of our changes that are specific to the Government of Ontario is they're all contained within a Government of Ontario plugin. And you can see all of those changes and the whole evolution on the GitHub account, which we've linked to there. So there was already discussion of knowing what your business requirements are. And we just wanted to talk about some of the things that we had to consider for our solution, what it needed to provide in order for it to work. So the answer is, by the way, yes, CKAN did allow us to do all these things, which is great. So Ontario has different metadata needs. So for instance, we have metadata fields like we want to store the reason why a data set won't be made public. We've made different assumptions on process and flow than core CKAN. So I think this changes with further versions of CKAN, but in 2.8 it assumes that all data sets are dataset metadata records are going to have data. But we actually, because we have an inventory, sometimes we just disclose that the province has data. So we have records that both have data and don't have data attached. We also have to adhere to a province-wide look and feel. And we have requirements in our digital guidelines that require us to do things like user research and then execute on that user research. And Ontario, again, as Christine mentioned, we're moving towards not just disclosing data sets, but disclosing data assets. So not only data, but how we're using our data, other ways of disclosing how we do decision making within the government. Also, we have a requirement to display everything in both English and French. So we needed a platform that supported internationalization. So we have a wide variety of users, not just the public looking for answers, other jurisdictions, researchers, businesses, for instance, companies like IamSick.ca that ingest some of our data and provide it back as services. And to that end, we've actually developed personas based on real interviews with real Ontarians to basically inform who is using the catalog and what do they need. One nice thing about using something like CKAN is it gets you a working data catalog very quickly, and then you can concentrate on other areas, like you can really invest in user research to iterate on it. And so the time that we've had by starting out with something like CKAN, allowing us to invest in user research has let us look at the homepage. I know that's a strange thing to mention, but we really took for granted that people within Ontario knew what a data catalog was. So that user research really helped us say, what ideas do we need to introduce people to? What kind of context do we need to provide to say, why are we providing a data catalog? What are we hoping to enable here with the public and with all of our users? We've done user research on finding data. We take it for granted that the interface, not just CKAN, but any data catalog, that the user will be able to go through that flow and find the data they're looking for, but we actually tested that, and we've had success and also opportunities to sort of optimize their experience. We've also looked into licenses. We're currently doing that. Do the users notice the placement of licenses or terms of use within the interface for a data set? And are they reading it? Do they understand it? So that's a big component that we're hoping to iterate on. And as well, data formats, because we take for granted that the visitors will know what things like CSVs are or what JSON format is. And then so there are opportunities there to also make it friendlier and help educate them and enable them to use all the resources that we have available.
And I'm just going to quickly go over some of the things that we've really built and invested in the past couple of years, and our kind of experience and how we feel about CKAN as a whole. So with our limited resources, we're really focused on empowering internal and external users through our development process, and that has been reflected through continuous integration through user feedback, like Bianca and Christine has talked about. And that is really helping external users find the data set that they're looking for, and helping internal users upload, so that would be our ministry folks, upload new data sets in a way that is beneficial for consumers to use for database decision making, right? And with that, we've done a lot of metadata enhancement and UX upgrades. We're also currently looking at federation with other data catalogs. Like Christine mentioned, we do have a GeoHub catalog that we are looking to just pull directly from. And with that, it's really, again, about empowering our users. So the homepage, as Bianca has already said, is a continuous integration with user feedback in action. So we started from something that is kind of out of the box, and now we are into something much more customized, right? And for our data asset and data publishing process, with the legislation in place, we really just reach out to ministries to figure out what kind of inventory they have and figure out whether or not that data sets can be published. And from there, we help them publish said data. And we're in the process of really onboarding additional resources from these ministries as open data leads, so that they kind of own their internal process and really integrate this open data publishing idea into the culture of their business process. And a great example of that has been the COVID-19 data that we've published for the past year and a few months. It started with just a couple of ministries, but we're now up to actually 39 data sets. So this screenshot's a little bit old, across health, long-term care, education, attorney general, you name it. Any sort of data that we feel can assist Ontarians' decision-making process, as well as being open with how the government functions. And it allows our Ontarians to really own the data process. So there's a ton of products out there, from dashboards to journalist reporting, and the whole CKAN product makes it incredibly easy to do all of this, right? So the great things about using CKAN is that the community is extremely knowledgeable and very helpful. There's a GitHub link right there to the wiki, along with the documentation that's very extensive. And there is a Gitter chat. So if you have a question, you can just hop on, and people will be online 24/7, since it's a global initiative, to answer your questions, as well as the extensions that the other folks have already talked about. So we use Fluent, Scheming, and Harvest, just to name a few. That allows us to just right out of the box to handle internationalization and metadata improvements, as well as federation. And along with that, there are some challenges, obviously, and it kind of goes hand in hand with having an open source platform, is that you do need to have in-house resources and discipline around documentation. You'll quickly realize, if you don't write stuff down, that you'll forget why you did certain things 6 months later and have no idea what to do, right? And with the resourcing, you do need to have some people, if you decide to tackle this in-house, to have the know-how on some front-end and back-end methodologies. And one of the challenges we're kind of facing right now is that CKAN has a really elegant way of doing things for like metadata display and stuff like that. But sometimes it doesn't match your business process, and the challenge has been trying to kind of work around what's out of the box, and it results in some inelegant overwriting of the core code. And lastly, it's kind of a thing with any type of software, is that you have to manage your own release. CKAN is continuously in development, and there are milestones that we feel like would be good to hit. So right now we're looking at upgrading to Python 3, since Python 2 is out of support. And with that, I kind of just want to capture all of that and sum it up. It's like there is an incredible amount of resources and things that you can do with CKAN, and it's a great tool if you want control over your vision of your data catalog, and you are able to support what you want to see to be built, right? And since we're kind of out of time, I did have a demo set up, but there's a bunch of slides after this that kind of talks about all the things that we've done with metadata and API and visuals. So you're welcome to check it out. I'll share the link to the slides. And back to Seema.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mike McGuire. I'm from Towson University, and I'm Seema's partner in crime in this project. And my job here is to facilitate the Q&A session. So because we have a large number of participants